Recently, I've been invited to some really awesome groups like Nonprofitist, Indie Collective, and Cindy Wagman's Fractional Fundraiser Academy to specifically talk about being lazy on LinkedIn or spending one intentional hour a week on LinkedIn to move the needle in your social impact business. So I love talking about this and it seems to resonate. So I thought I'd do a solo episode about the 3-part framework that even makes being lazy on LinkedIn possible. Because especially after Twitter has imploded and some other things going on, more and more social impact entrepreneurs are flocking to LinkedIn to grow their business, to build top of mind trust, and to nurture their community. But we don't want to be online all day long trying to get our message heard, right? We have way more important things to do, like cuddling our dogs, taking naps, and yes, supporting our clients. So, how do we show up as go to voices on LinkedIn in a lazy or let's just say life first way? I am spilling the beans on the framework that makes this work in this episode. And after you listen, if you're looking for a step by step guide on the specific how to's, you can get free access to the first bit of my new Thought Leadership Clarity course. So the course explains step by step how to do each of the pieces that build up a strong thought leadership brand, from crafting your foundational messaging to building strategic partnerships. Plus, it includes scripts, templates, and swipeable copy to make each action easeful. So that link for your first free bit is in the show notes. And let's get into being lazy on LinkedIn. Three, two, one. Welcome to the Campfire Circle. I'm your host, Tania Bhattacharyya, and I empower purpose-driven women in building influential personal brands that drive change and raise revenue. We all talk about getting a seat at the table, but why though? Who wants to sit in a stuffy boardroom anyway? Let's reimagine the ultimate space of leadership as a campfire circle, where we share stories that inspire movements, build brave communities to huddle together with for warmth, and where there is always room. Come sit with us. So I discovered being lazy on LinkedIn when I was a nonprofit fundraiser and executive director. And when I think back to those days, they'd often start like at the crack of dawn, which, I'm not a morning person. So it was like 7 a.m. It's not really the crack of dawn, but it was early. They'd start with a community networking gathering or a donor breakfast or a call from a colleague who was trying to place a patient in treatment. The nonprofit was an addiction treatment program for women and their families. And they would end, much later after 7 p.m. with a grant reception or just trying to catch up with myself and everything that had happened that day. Or sometimes they'd end in a wonderful way, which was alumni gatherings with women who had graduated our program sometime over the last 40 years. And so every day was busy, but full of impactful stories, right? And so I challenged myself to share one interesting story each week on LinkedIn. We were a smaller shop relatively. We didn't have a huge marketing team. We didn't have a big PR firm or anything. So scrappy was the name of the game at that point. And so I would put an hour on my calendar each week and it was protected time. I committed to it. And in that hour, I'd share a story and I would send a couple of messages to past corporate sponsors or potential supporters. I would leave a thoughtful comment on a business influencer's post, right? Either somebody in the local community or somebody nationally that was important to our business in some way. And it felt like nothing was happening. It felt inconsequential. It felt like a waste of time. But I kept doing it. And after about, I would say 6 weeks, I started seeing a difference. And as the weeks went on, it was like exponentially more every single time. So some of the things that would happen is we were invited to PR opportunities like podcasts and panels without having to pitch. Local corporate leaders were reaching out to us about sponsoring our fundraising breakfast, right? We would get organic referrals from interventionists and HR people and stuff like that, just from this top of mind awareness. And when I left that job as a nonprofit ED to become a consultant, I remember thinking, which is actually so funny now. I'm like, how did I think that? I remember thinking, oh, okay, I don't have to work as much. I'll have more time. And of course, that didn't happen. Us solopreneurs are pretty busy. But as I became a consultant, I realized that being lazy on LinkedIn is still, it still works, right? And giving ourselves the grace to come up with just one original and shareable thought each week lets our best brand storytelling emerge. And nurturing the people that we need to lets our relationships grow deeper naturally into what they're meant to be. And that's because LinkedIn is the place, I believe, to access movers, shakers, power brokers, and amplifiers. Yes, they may be lurking. They may not be liking everything you do, but they are watching and learning and building trust in your solutions. And that is why I love LinkedIn, right? It's a tool that sort of democratizes visibility and thought leadership. Pretty much anyone can build a platform and have access to decision makers, supporters, clients, and just open up doorways of opportunity. And I go into detail on why that is in episode 30 of this podcast, which I will link in the show notes. It's about what makes LinkedIn the best place to build your brand and business. So you can check that out if you want as well. But as I mentioned, for this episode, I have a 3-part framework that allows me to be lazy on LinkedIn. These are the 3 pieces that we need to have in place to become a top of mind, trusted voice in a way that requires just bite-sized chunks. Because the things that we're doing during that hour or so are rooted in this 3C framework. And so the things we do are so intentional, clear, and actionable. So the 3Cs are you need to have clarity, you need to have content, and you need to build community. So let's talk about clarity first. And when I say clarity, I'm talking about clarity in your brand messaging, like what you stand for, who is your niche or community, and what is your specific expression of the problem you solve for? And what is the specific value that you bring to the world so that you can get paid according to that value? So when you don't have clarity, your messaging comes out differently every time, right? Or it's not clear, which causes confusion. Your messaging doesn't get at the heart of what you do in a way that lands. And that's because when you're not clear, you're like trying to talk to everyone. You're trying to address everybody. And so you're not really talking to anybody. Like your ideal person that you want to serve can't really hear you or really understand what you do, why it's important, and how they fit into your work. And so probably you have a lot of things that you're passionate about, which is fine. Like it's actually great. It's great to have a lot of things you're passionate about, but you don't know how to fit them together into a unified golden thread of like a vision, a mission, a brand story. But when you do have clarity, when you do have crystal clear messaging, it makes people say, tell me more, right? People begin to talk about you positively and refer you in rooms that you're not even in. So you don't have to show up a ton because you're developing an audience of ambassadors who are carrying your message for you. You get a consistent stream of leads and opportunities from other people that you're meeting on LinkedIn because it's so clear why, how, and who you help, and it's easy to refer you. And of course, because you have that clear brand story, you're clear on who you're talking to, you're showing up as a practiced and relatable guide. And so clarity is foundational to being lazy on LinkedIn because it means that every action that you take works harder for you. So here's a couple of checkpoints that you can gauge yourself against to see if maybe you need to tighten up your brand messaging or just to see where you're at. So one of the most common barriers I hear is some version of I am afraid to hit post and get visible on LinkedIn. And oftentimes, LinkedIn takes up so much of our time because we take an hour or more to write a post, wanting it to be perfect, revising it, changing it. And it's never good enough because how can we ever get it to be perfect, right? So then we never post it at all. And I count this under clarity because as we root ourselves in what we stand for, our inner chaperone does start to get quieter and we work together as part of a team, right? Because we are all working in our purpose together. The second thing is that I want you to ask yourself is, are you speaking to a specific niche in their own words and language? This allows us to be lazy on LinkedIn because when your ideal people hear themselves reflected back in your words, they will start to lean in. Your content will land powerfully. You'll start to get the right fit inquiries from your one post per week, and that can be enough. The third thing I want you to ask yourself is, are you sharing in a way that is rooted in your brand story, that demonstrates your deeper why, that shares your story of what you have grown through to now be the guide you are today? I would guess that for so many of us, the work that we do for our clients is somehow related to an experience that we went through ourselves or are passionate about. So sharing from our story, like speaking to our why, helps us be lazy on LinkedIn because storytelling is a shortcut to trust. Stories transport people into our world and our work like nothing else does, right? And so I've been really entrenched in this piece around clarity lately as I've been creating the Thought Leadership Clarity audio course. Because gaining clarity in your brand message makes you fall in love with your social impact business again. You become more confident in your visibility. You become more courageous in your actions. You remember how powerful your work is, which helps you consistently share. Your insights support your people. Your influence creates systems level change, and your visibility grows your business. And as you gain clarity, your mind becomes like a faucet of ideas and stories and ultimately content. And so this drives us right into the next C of the framework, which is content. So once you have clarity, then you can start sharing content that lands powerfully. So when you don't have content, your current clients know how amazing you are. Like everyone in your current world knows you are the bomb, but a whole new world of new potential supporters who are oftentimes just like a second degree connection away from you are missing out on your awesomeness. And the world is noisier and louder than ever. So even though you had a great, let's say, coffee chat with somebody, a referral source, maybe a month ago, 3 months ago, they may forget that you offer what you offer, even when they need exactly what you provide or have a client that does. Without content, it is tough to stay top of mind. And without content, and this is the worst piece, your people will still struggle with their issue, like the issue that you solve, right? So maybe they'll never get support at all because that one insight that would have opened up the doorway to their change process was never planted, right? It's not always just about getting the client. It's about changing hearts and minds at scale. And if you're not sharing your opinions, you're not impacting the people who struggle with the issue you work on. And that sucks. Now, when you do have content, it works as a 24/7 marketing team. Because if a client likes your post, their colleagues are going to start seeing your name and your thoughts come up too. And your clients probably have friends who also struggle with the issue you are supporting them with. Your content will help you educate folks and inspire folks. Like one of the cool things I think about visibility and thought leadership on LinkedIn is how large your impact becomes. Out of all of the people reaching out and starting to let you know how much your content inspired them to do things differently or that resonated or that hire you, there are probably 10 or 50 or 100, I don't know, but there's a lot more people who also felt that way and just have not told you yet. And then, of course, third, when you have content, when people eventually hop on a discovery call or a sales call or a first meeting with you, they're like already in. You don't have to sell them on anything because they already trust you through your content. Your discovery calls become fun and easy. Like you are talking to a friend. Like it literally feels like you're talking to someone you've known for a while because you are connected through your content. And so if you're only going to show up once per week, you do want that content to pack a heavy punch and really prompt people towards behavior change. So here's a couple of checkpoints that you can ask yourself to see if your content is like meeting these marks. So first, are you painting a picture of a visionary outcome or are you just sharing features and benefits of your offers? We are so in the trenches of the work that we do and so like in it that sometimes we get stuck talking about how many modules our new program has or how many hours of your time your clients will get if they hire you to do a VIP day, right? But instead, what if you could talk about the end transformation? It's like talking about the tropical destination that your clients want to go to versus like highlighting how comfy the seats on the airplane are, right? Like which is actually going to get the person there. Probably going to be talking about the tropical destination. So the other thing I want you to ask yourself is, are you positioning yourself as a go-to expert by sharing your key brand messages in your content again and again in slightly different ways? Like you don't have to come up with new ideas every time you create content. You actually just need to share the foundational things that you truly believe in and say to your clients over and over and over in your content. Like, what points of view do you want to become known for and called to speak on? What opinions and insights and perspectives of yours can become so recognizable that even if your name and picture wasn't attached to your content, people would still know that it was you? Each of your key brand messages can be a shortcut to a larger concept that you and your audience are deeply passionate about. So when it's time to put out your content for the week, you don't always have to come up with something brand new. You can just go deeper into what you already believe. And so that also helps us be lazy on LinkedIn. So the last C of the 3C framework is community. And often I feel like this is like a missing piece. And it is key to being lazy on LinkedIn because, again, it's a community that forms around you that will share your content with others, that will refer you, that will serve as ambassadors for you, right? That will become your circle, your people. You'll build your personal board of directors or Campfire Circle from this group. You'll do collabs with them. And so here's the checkpoints that you can ask yourself to see how you're doing in this piece. So one, are you engaging with the people who are engaging with you, right? If people are visiting your page, if people are commenting on your posts, if people are voting in your polls, are you getting to know them? Are you deepening that relationship from a stranger into maybe a referent, a client, an investor, a mentor, like whoever they're meant to be in your world? I know it feels weird at first, but remember, it's just a human being on the other side, right? Can you engage in collabs and partnerships like LinkedIn Lives, LinkedIn Audios, do post and article swaps, right? Can you build strategic partners who serve a similar audience to you, but in a different way? If you're a fundraising coach, can you partner with an attorney that works just with nonprofits and do a training that's in the Venn diagram between you? Like just this year, California passed a set of laws that changes the ways nonprofits can crowdfund. So it's like, that would be a really interesting partnership, right? To do a training on that. There's so many different kinds of partnerships you can do, but both of your audiences would be interested. And when combined, you have such a deeper reach and stronger voice. Like when you share your audiences in one valuable partnership or collaboration, it just grows your influence so deeply. So here's the thing. Here's the three pieces, right? Each of the pieces on their own is powerful, but you could have each of these three. You could have clarity, you could have content, you could be nurturing community. But if you don't practice this one thing, there are still going to be opportunities that are missed. You're still going to miss out on things that are meant for you. And you can maybe guess what it is. It also starts with a C. Love my alliteration. And it is our old friend, consistency. Yes, it is consistency. These actions of being lazy on LinkedIn, these small bite-sized pieces, they just build and build on each other, right? Consistency isn't an afterthought because building the habit of doing these things for an hour per week each week is what bears that wonderful fruit over time. If I had quit doing these things when I was a nonprofit ED after a month, which is like, it can feel like forever. A month can feel like forever. If I had stopped because I felt like nothing was working, there are so many, like hundreds of thousands of dollars that wouldn't have been raised. There's so many women that wouldn't have gotten treatment. I mean, they might have gotten treatment, but they wouldn't have gotten the treatment that we provided, which is, anyway, I could talk about my old nonprofit forever. You know what I mean? Like, it is simple, but not necessarily easy. So what I know for sure, after supporting so many social impact entrepreneurs, executives, nonprofit leaders, founders, etc., with their foundational personal brand messaging work, is that gaining clarity oftentimes is what creates that habit of consistency. Because again, we fall in love with our why. We are in deep relationship with our foundational purpose. And so if you want to know more and know specifically how to do these pieces, I want you to tap that link in the show notes and grab your first episode for free of the Thought Leadership Clarity course. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. What'd you think? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or even better, reach out and let me know through lumosmarketing.co. Yes, that's Lumos, as in the illumination spell from Harry Potter. Because when you shine, magical things happen. You can get social with me on LinkedIn, and of course, check out the show notes to stay in touch with our guests. Let's talk soon.